Galactic Council chamber floated in the heart of the Nexus, a station older than most civilizations. Its walls were transparent, showing the swirl of 1,000 star systems rotating slowly in the distance. Inside, representatives from 47 species sat in a perfect circle. They had ruled the galaxy for 300,000 years. Their word was law. Their judgment was final. But today, fear had entered the room. Ambassador Kelrus of the Tauran Collective stood at the center. Her skin was pale blue, her eyes sharp and calculating. She had served the Council for 200 years and had never seen panic like this. The hologram before them showed something impossible. A fleet. Hundreds of ships, each one massive and scarred by time. They had appeared at the edge of the outer veil, a region of space so remote that nothing lived there. Nothing should have been there at all. How long until they reached the border? Asked Chancellor Vohm, his voice thin with worry. 6 standard cycles, Kelrus answered. Maybe less if they accelerate. And we are certain these are human ships? The signatures match. Old Earth military architecture, pre-Exodus designs, but the energy readings are unlike anything we have recorded. These vessels should not be functional. They should not exist. Silence filled the chamber. The name alone carried weight. Humans. A species that had vanished from the galaxy 1,000,000 years ago. They had been brilliant, dangerous, and unpredictable. When they left, the Council had been relieved. Peace had followed. Order had been restored. But stories remained. Whispers of what humanity had been capable of. Wars fought with terrifying intelligence. Weapons that bent the laws of physics. A refusal to surrender even when defeat was certain. Now they were returning. Kelrus pulled up another image. It showed one of the ships up close, recorded by a long-range probe before it went silent. The hull was dark, almost black, covered in strange patterns that shimmered like oil on water. There were no lights, no transmissions, just silence and movement. The ship looked dead, but it moved with purpose. They destroyed the probe, Kelrus said quietly. One shot, instant. We do not know what kind of weapon it was. Then we must prepare for war, said General Thane, a towering figure from the Kryn Dominion. His race had built their reputation on strength and conquest. We mobilize the defense fleets. We meet them at the Veil and destroy them before they reach populated space. And if we cannot? Asked Kelrus. Thane did not answer. Kelrus turned back to the hologram. She had studied human history. It was required learning for anyone who served the Council. Humanity had been small once, confined to a single planet. But they had risen fast, too fast. They had developed technology in centuries that took other species millennia. They had fought wars among themselves that would have destroyed lesser civilizations, but instead, those wars had made them sharper, smarter, more dangerous. When they finally left the galaxy, they had done so without warning. Every human colony, every station, every outpost had simply disappeared in the span of a single year. No explanation, no message, just gone. And the galaxy had moved on, but now they were back. And the ships looked ancient, damaged, as if they had been traveling through hell itself. We need to know what happened to them, Kelrus said. We need to understand where they have been and why they have returned. If we attack without knowledge, we may start a war we cannot win. Then send a diplomatic envoy, suggested Counselor Aerith, a frail creature whose species valued negotiation above all else. Make contact, learn their intentions. And if their intentions are hostile, Thane growled. Then we will know, Kelrus replied. And we will have time to prepare, the Council voted. It was close, but diplomacy won. Kelrus was chosen to lead the mission. She would take a small ship, unarmed, carrying only a message of peace. It was a risk, perhaps a fatal one, but someone had to go. 3 days later, Kelrus stood on the bridge of the envoy ship staring at the view screen. The human fleet filled the display. Up close, it was even more terrifying. The ships were enormous, each one scarred and battered as if they had fought a war that lasted eons. Some had entire sections missing, others were fused together as if they had cannibalized their own fleet to survive. But they moved in perfect formation, precise, controlled. Her communications officer turned to her, his face pale. Ambassador, they are responding. Put it through. The screen flickered. For a moment, there was only static. Then a face appeared, human, male. His skin was weathered, his eyes tired but sharp. He wore no uniform, just a simple dark jacket. Behind him, Kelrus could see the interior of his ship. It was dim, lit only by faint blue lights. The walls were covered in symbols she did not recognize. "I am Ambassador Kelris of the Galactic Council," she began, keeping her voice steady. "We come in peace. We wish to know your intentions and offer assistance if needed." The man stared at her for a long moment. His expression was unreadable. "You do not remember us," he said finally. His voice was low, rough, like stone grinding against stone. "But we remember you." Kelris felt a chill run through her. "We remember humanity. You left the galaxy 1,000,000 years ago. We do not know why. We do not know where you went. But we welcome your return." The man smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "We did not leave. We were sent. Sent? By whom?" "By you." The words hung in the air like a blade. Kelris felt her breath catch. "That is impossible. The Council would never—" "The Council voted," the man interrupted. 1,000,000 years ago. Humanity was deemed too dangerous to remain, too unpredictable. So you sent us into the darkness, a region of space beyond the veil, a place where nothing returns. You told us it was exile. You told us it was mercy." Kelris felt the floor shift beneath her. She had studied the records. She knew the histories. There was no mention of exile, no mention of the darkness. "We survived," the man continued, "but barely. The darkness is not empty. It is alive, and it is hungry. We fought it for 1,000,000 years. We lost billions. We lost entire fleets. But we learned. We adapted. And now we are coming home. To wage war," Kelris whispered. The man leaned forward. His eyes were cold. "To survive. The darkness followed us. It is coming. And when it arrives, you will understand why we had to become what we are." The transmission ended. The screen went black. Kelris stood frozen, her mind racing. She turned to her crew. "Get us back to the Nexus, now." But deep down she knew the truth. The war had already begun. The council chamber was in chaos. Voices rose and fell in waves of accusation and denial. Kelris stood at the center, her report displayed on every screen. The human transmission played on repeat. The man's words echoed through the hall like a curse. "This is a lie," General Thane declared, his voice booming. "There is no record of any exile. The humans left of their own will. This is propaganda meant to divide us." "Then explain the fleet," Kelris shot back. "Explain the ships. Explain how they survived 1,000,000 years in a region of space we believed was uninhabitable." "Perhaps they are not the original humans," suggested Counselor Aerith. "Perhaps they are descendants, or clones, or something worse." Kelris shook her head. "I have analyzed the transmission. The genetic markers are authentic. The language patterns match pre-Exodus records. These are humans, and they believe we sent them into the darkness." Chancellor Vohm raised a hand, silencing the room. He was the oldest member of the council, his species capable of living for thousands of years. His memory stretched back further than most civilizations. He looked troubled. "I will access the forbidden archives," he said quietly. "If there is truth to this claim, it will be there." The room fell silent. The forbidden archives were sealed records, accessible only by the Chancellor and only in times of absolute necessity. They contained the darkest moments of galactic history. Decisions made in desperation. Actions that could never be undone. Vohm left the chamber. The others waited. Kelris paced. Her mind would not settle. She thought about the man's face, the weariness in his eyes, the way he had said the word mercy as if it were poison. If he was telling the truth, then the council had committed an atrocity. And worse, they had erased it from memory. An hour passed. Then finally Vohm returned. He looked older than before, as if the weight of what he had learned had aged him in moments. He carried a data tablet, its surface glowing faintly. "It is true," he said, his voice hollow. 1,000,000 years ago, the council faced a crisis. Humanity had developed weapons that threatened the balance of power. They refused to submit to galactic law. They expanded too quickly, too aggressively. The council debated for years. Some wanted war, others wanted negotiation, but in the end, a third option was chosen. He activated the tablet. An ancient document appeared, written in a language few could still read. Kelris translated it in her mind. The words were cold, clinical. They described humanity as a threat to galactic stability. They outlined a plan. Humanity would be offered a choice: exile beyond the veil into a region called the darkness, or total extermination. The humans chose exile. They were promised that the darkness was empty, a place to start over. But the council knew the truth. The darkness was not empty. It was a graveyard. Nothing that entered ever returned. They sent them to die, Kelris whispered. Vohm nodded. And then they erased the records. The council believed humanity would be gone within a generation. They did not expect them to survive. They did not expect them to return. General Thane stood abruptly. Then we finish what our ancestors started. We mobilize every fleet. We destroy them before they reach our worlds. And confirm that we are the monsters they believe us to be? Kelris said sharply. They survived because we betrayed them. If we attack now, we prove them right. They said the darkness followed them, Aerith added nervously. What does that mean? Vohm looked at the screen showing the human fleet. I do not know, but I fear we are about to find out. A sudden alarm blared through the chamber. The lights shifted to red. A technician's voice came through the speakers, frantic and breathless. Chancellor, we have a situation. Long-range sensors have detected an anomaly forming near the outer veil. It is massive, and it is expanding. The council rushed to the observation deck. Through the transparent walls, they could see the edge of known space. And there, like a wound in reality itself, something was tearing open. It was not a portal. It was not a wormhole. It was something else. Something wrong. The anomaly pulsed, and from within it, shapes began to emerge. They were not ships. They were creatures. Massive, formless things that moved like liquid shadow. They had no eyes, no mouths, but Kelris could feel them watching. Hungry. Ancient. Endless. The darkness, she whispered. The creatures moved toward the human fleet. But the humans did not retreat. Instead, they turned and opened fire. Light erupted across the void. The human weapons tore into the creatures, ripping them apart. But for everyone destroyed, 2 more emerged. The fleet held formation, firing relentlessly, but Kelris could see the truth. They were outnumbered. One of the human ships broke apart, consumed by the shadows. Then another. The fleet began to pull back, still firing, but the darkness pressed forward. It was relentless, and it was heading toward the council's territory. Kelris turned to Vohm. We need to help them. Help them? Thane snarled. They brought this here. No, Kelris said, her voice cutting through the noise. We sent them into the darkness. We created this, and now it is our responsibility to face it. Vohm stared at her. Then slowly he nodded. Send the order. All defense fleets are to converge on the Veil. We stand with the humans. The room erupted in protest, but Vohm's voice silenced them all. We betrayed them once. We will not do so again. As the fleets mobilized, Kelris opened a channel to the human commander. The same man appeared on her screen. His ship was damaged, alarms blaring in the background. We are sending reinforcements, Kelris said. We will fight beside you. The man stared at her. For a moment she thought he would refuse. But then he nodded. Good, because this is only the beginning. The transmission ended. Kelris watched the darkness spread. She had spent her life believing the council was just, that the galaxy was safe. Now she knew the truth. The galaxy had been built on a lie, and the price of that lie was coming home. The combined fleet assembled at the Veil in less than 2 cycles. It was the largest military force the galaxy had seen in centuries. Over 3,000 ships representing dozens of species, all converging on a single point. The human fleet waited at the front, battered but defiant. Their ships were silent, their weapons primed. Kelris stood on the bridge of the Council's flagship, the Aegis Eternal. Around her, officers worked frantically, coordinating formations and running combat simulations. General Thane commanded from the tactical center, his voice barking orders. But Kelris could see the fear in everyone's eyes. They had faced pirates, rebels, and rogue factions. But this was different. The darkness was not an enemy. It was a force of nature, a hunger given form. The human commander, who had identified himself only as Captain Reese, opened a channel to all fleet captains. His face appeared on every screen, calm despite the chaos. Listen carefully, he said. The darkness cannot be killed. It can only be repelled. Our weapons can damage it, but it regenerates. The only way to stop it is to starve it. Starve it? Thane growled. How do you starve a shadow? It feeds on energy, Reese explained. Life, heat, light, anything that burns. The more you fight it, the stronger it gets. We learned this the hard way. For the first 100,000 years, we threw everything at it. Nuclear fire, plasma storms, antimatter weapons. It consumed them all and grew stronger. So we changed tactics. We learned to fight smart. He transmitted a battle plan. It appeared on every tactical display. The fleet would form into layered rings. The outer ring would engage the darkness with minimal force, using precision strikes to slow its advance. The middle ring would create interference fields, disrupting the darkness's ability to sense and absorb energy. The inner ring would protect evacuation routes and maintain a fallback position. And what about the humans? Kelris asked. Where will your fleet be? Reese's expression hardened. We will be in the center. Drawing its attention, we have been its prey for 1,000,000 years. It knows us. It wants us. We will use that. Thane frowned. That is a suicide position. Yes, Reese said simply. But it is the only way to keep it focused on us and away from your worlds. You get your people to safety. We will buy you time. Kelris felt her chest tighten. There has to be another way. Reese looked at her. For the first time, she saw something other than cold resolve in his eyes. Sadness, perhaps, or acceptance. There is not, he said. This is what we became. This is why we survived. We learned to sacrifice. We learned to endure. And we learned that survival is not the same as victory. The transmission ended. The fleet moved into position. Kelris watched the human ships advance, their dark hulls disappearing into the void. She wanted to stop them. She wanted to find a better solution. But she knew the truth. They were right. The darkness arrived like a tidal wave. It poured from the anomaly in a torrent of shadow and hunger. The outer ring opened fire, their weapons lancing through the void. The darkness recoiled, splitting and reforming. But it kept coming. The human fleet ignited their engines and charged. Their weapons flared, brighter and hotter than anything the Council had ever seen. They tore into the darkness with precision and fury. The creatures screamed, a sound that had no voice but echoed in the minds of every living being in the fleet. The darkness surged toward the humans, wrapping around their ships like oil. But the humans did not stop. They fired until their weapons overheated. They rammed their ships into the darkness when ammunition ran out. They self-destructed when there was no other choice. And with every sacrifice, they bought seconds, minutes, time. The middle ring activated the interference fields. Energy pulses rippled through space, creating pockets of silence where the darkness could not feed. It slowed, confused. The outer ring pressed the attack, driving it back toward the anomaly. For a moment, it seemed to be working. Then the darkness changed. It stopped spreading. It began to coil, gathering itself into a single massive form. It towered over the fleet, a mountain of shadow and malice. And then it screamed again. This time, the scream had weight. Ships shook. Shields collapsed. Officers clutched their heads, blood streaming from their ears. Kelris fell to her knees, her vision blurring. She could feel it in her mind. A presence, ancient, endless, aware. The darkness spoke. It had no words, but the meaning was clear. It was not mindless. It was not a storm. It was alive. And it was angry. It surged forward, ignoring the interference fields, smashing through the outer ring. Ships exploded like insects. The middle ring broke apart, captains screaming orders that no one could hear. The fleet scattered. The human ships regrouped, forming a wall between the darkness and the fleeing Council forces. They fired everything they had. But it was not enough. The darkness consumed them one by one. Kelris watched in horror as ship after ship disappeared into the shadow. Reese's voice crackled over the comms. Fall back! All ships, fall back to the Nexus. What about you? Kelris shouted. There was a long pause. Then Reese spoke, his voice calm. We are staying. Get your people out! No! There has to be another way. There is not. Go! The transmission cut out. The Aegis Eternal turned and joined the retreat. Kelris stared at the view screen, watching the human fleet make their last stand. They fought with everything they had. But the darkness was too strong. One by one, the human ships went silent, and the darkness continued its advance. The Nexus had become a tomb. Civilians flooded the evacuation bays, their faces pale with terror. Ships launched in waves, carrying refugees to any system far enough from the Veil. But the darkness was moving faster than anyone had predicted. It spread like a plague, consuming entire outposts in minutes. The Council's defense fleets tried to hold the line, but they were being torn apart. Kelris stood in the command center, surrounded by chaos. Screens displayed the collapse in real time. Entire sectors going dark. Distress signals piling up faster than anyone could answer. The galaxy was breaking. General Thane slammed his fist on the console. We need to evacuate the Nexus now. And go where? Kelris asked, her voice hollow. The darkness is everywhere. It is not hunting. It is consuming. There is nowhere left to run. Chancellor Vohm sat in silence, his ancient eyes staring at nothing. He had lived for thousands of years, had witnessed the rise and fall of civilizations. But this was different. This was the end. We should have listened to them, he said quietly. The humans. They tried to warn us. They told us the darkness could not be fought with force, but we did not believe them. Kelris turned to him. What are you saying? I am saying we were fools. We believed ourselves to be the masters of the galaxy. We believed our technology, our unity, would protect us. But the humans knew better. They learned the hard way, and we sent them to suffer so we would not have to. A junior officer approached, her hands shaking. Ambassador, we are receiving a transmission. It is from the human fleet, or what is left of it. Kelris felt her heart stop. Put it through. The screen flickered. Captain Reese appeared. He looked worse than before. His face was covered in burns, his uniform torn. Behind him, the interior of his ship was in ruins. Sparks flew from broken consoles. Alarms wailed, but his eyes were still sharp. You are still alive, Kelris breathed. Barely, Reese said. We lost 80% of the fleet. But we bought you time. Did you use it? We are evacuating, Kelris said. But the darkness is too fast. We cannot outrun it, Reese nodded slowly. I know, that is why I'm contacting you. There is one option left, but it will cost everything. Tell me, Reese leaned closer to the camera. The darkness feeds on energy, but it also has a core, a source. We found it during our time in exile. It is not a creature. It is a wound, a tear in reality itself. Something broke the fabric of space a long time ago, and the darkness is what leaked through. If we can close the wound, the darkness will collapse. How do we close it? Thane demanded. We do not, Reese said. We cauterize it. We use enough energy in one place to burn the wound shut. It will destroy everything within 100 light years, but it will stop the darkness. Kelris felt the air leave her lungs. You are talking about a nova, a controlled star collapse. That kind of energy would wipe out entire systems. Yes, Reese said. Including the Nexus, including every ship in the area, including us. The room fell silent. Kelris looked around at the officers, the council members, the civilians still boarding evacuation ships. She thought about the billions of lives spread across the galaxy, the children who had never known war, the elders who had lived in peace. All of it would be gone if they did nothing, but if they acted, they would become the very thing they feared. Destroyers, killers of worlds. There has to be another way, she whispered. There is not, Reese said gently. We have fought this for 1,000,000 years. We have tried everything. This is the only way. Chancellor Vohm stood. His voice was steady, though his hands shook. Then we will do it. We will give the order. No, Kelris said. You cannot make this decision alone. I can, Vohm replied. And I will, because I'm old enough to remember what it means to lead. Leadership is not about making easy choices. It is about making the right ones, even when they break you. He turned to the communications officer. Send the order. All remaining fleets are to converge on the anomaly. Prepare the Nova Protocol. The officer hesitated, then nodded. The order went out. Across the fleet, ships turned toward the darkness, toward the wound in space, toward oblivion. Reese's voice cut through the silence. Ambassador Kelris, you and your people need to leave. Now, get as far from the Nexus as you can. You have 12 hours before we trigger the collapse. Kelris shook her head. I am not leaving. If this is the end, I will face it. You are a fool, Reese said, but there was no anger in his voice. Only respect, perhaps, Kelris replied. But I will not let you die alone. Reese smiled. It was a sad, tired smile. Then we will see this through together. The transmission ended. Kelris turned to her crew. Anyone who wants to leave, go now. No one will think less of you. No one moved. Thane stepped forward. If we are doing this, we do it as one, together. Kelris nodded. The fleet moved into position. Hundreds of ships surrounded the anomaly, their weapons aimed at its heart. The darkness sensed the trap. It pulled back, coiling like a serpent. But it was too late. The human ships fired first. Not at the darkness, but at the anomaly itself. Their weapons struck the wound, tearing it wider. Energy poured out, wild and chaotic. The darkness screamed. Then the Council fleet opened fire. Every weapon, every missile, every ounce of power they had left. The anomaly began to collapse in on itself. Space buckled. Reality cracked. The darkness surged toward the fleet in a final desperate attack. Ships exploded. Shields shattered. Kelris held onto her console as the Aegis Eternal shook violently. All ships full power. Reese's voice roared over the comms. Do not stop. Do not let it close. The fleet poured everything into the anomaly. The light was blinding. The heat unbearable. Kelris felt her skin burn. Her vision blurred. But she did not look away, and then the anomaly detonated. The explosion was silent. That was the first thing Kelris noticed when she woke. No alarms, no screams, just silence. She opened her eyes slowly. The bridge of the Aegis Eternal was dark, lit only by emergency lights. Smoke drifted through the air. Her crew lay slumped over their consoles, unconscious but breathing. She pulled herself to her feet, every muscle screaming in protest. Her hands were burned. Her vision swam. But she was alive. She stumbled to the view screen and activated it with trembling fingers. The display flickered, then cleared. The darkness was gone. The anomaly had collapsed entirely, leaving nothing but empty space. The human fleet was gone. The outer defense rings were gone. Nearly half the Council's ships had been destroyed. But the darkness was no more. Kelris felt tears stream down her face. She did not know if they were from relief or grief. Perhaps both. A weak voice crackled over the comms. Ambassador Kelris. Do you read? Her heart leapt. Reese! What is left of me, he replied. His voice was faint, barely audible. The command ship is heavily damaged. Life support is failing, but we are still here. Kelris activated the long-range scanners. She found the human flagship drifting in the debris field. It was barely recognizable. Entire sections were missing. The hull was torn open, but a single faint energy signature pulsed within. Life! We are coming for you, Kelris said. Hold on. No, Reese said. There is no time. My crew is dead. The ship is dying. But that is not why I called. Then why? To tell you what happens next. Kelris felt a chill. What do you mean? The darkness is gone, Reese said. But the wound that created it is still there. Sealed, but not healed. It will take time. Centuries, maybe longer. But one day it will open again. And when it does, you need to be ready. How? Kelris asked. How do we prepare for something like this? By remembering, Reese said. Remember what happened here. Remember the price of arrogance. Remember that survival is not about being the strongest or the smartest. It is about being willing to sacrifice. That is what we learned in the darkness. That is what kept us alive. His voice grew weaker. We were sent into exile because the Council feared us. And they were right to fear us. Not because we were dangerous, but because we refused to forget. We refused to let go of who we were. Even when it would have been easier to die, we chose to live. That is humanity's strength, and its curse. Kelris gripped the console. Reese, please, let us save you. You cannot save me, he said gently. But you can save them. The refugees, the survivors. They will need leadership. They will need hope. Give it to them. Build something better than what came before. Learn from our mistakes. And do not let the galaxy forget what happened here. The transmission began to break apart. Reese, Kelris shouted. Tell them, he said, his voice fading. Tell them we came home. Tell them we finished what we started. And tell them that humanity does not abandon its own. Not ever. The transmission ended. On the scanner, the human flagship's energy signature flickered once, then went dark. Kelris stood alone on the bridge, staring at the empty space where the ship had been. Around her, her crew began to wake. They looked at her, waiting for orders. Waiting for hope. She took a deep breath and activated the fleet-wide channel. Her voice was steady, though her heart was breaking. All ships, this is Ambassador Kelris. The darkness has been destroyed. The threat is over, but the cost was immeasurable. We have lost thousands of ships, millions of lives, and we have lost the humans who returned from exile to save us. She paused, choosing her words carefully. 1,000,000 years ago, the Council made a choice. They sent humanity into the darkness to die. But humanity did not die. They survived. They endured. And when the darkness came for us, they stood between it and annihilation. They gave everything so that we could live. Her voice grew stronger. We owe them a debt that can never be repaid. But we can honor their sacrifice. We can rebuild. We can learn. And we can make sure that what happened here is never forgotten. From this day forward, the galaxy will remember humanity. Not as a threat, not as a danger, but as saviors. She looked at the empty space where Reese's ship had been. Captain Reese told me that humanity does not abandon its own. Today we prove that the galaxy does not abandon those who save it. We will find any surviving humans. We will bring them home, and we will give them the place they were always meant to have. Among the stars. Among us, the fleet responded, not with cheers or celebration, but with silence. The kind of silence that came from understanding. From respect, Kelris closed the channel and sat down. Her hands were still shaking. Her burns still hurt. But she felt something she had not felt in days. Purpose. The galaxy had been broken. But it could be rebuilt. The Council had lied. But the truth could be told. Humanity had been lost. But they could be found. And the darkness, though gone, would return. But when it did, the galaxy would be ready. Not because they were strong, not because they were united, but because they had learned the most important lesson of all. Survival is not about power. It is about sacrifice. It is about standing in the dark and refusing to let the light go out. Kelris looked out at the stars and whispered a promise to the void. We will remember. And somewhere, in the silent wreckage of the human flagship, a small emergency beacon activated. It pulsed once, twice, then went silent. But its message had been sent, a single word, transmitted into the black endure.